Hey there, extraordinary educators. Welcome back to On Secondary Thought, the home of purposefully imperfect teaching, where we discuss all things middle and high school. If you've been following our series, you know that we've been working on setting up our virtual school year in the most successful way possible. Our driving question has been, how can we ensure that we create a virtual learning community where everyone is included in a way that makes them feel valued and respected? We are on our 4th lesson in a series of 5 lessons. Before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to take the time to thank one of our subscribers, Pete. Thank you for reaching out to us to make us aware that the slides from our first lesson were not readily accessible to all viewers. Thanks to Pete, those Google Slides for the first lesson are now available in the description box of our first video. If you'd like to gain access to the slides from the other lessons in this series, please subscribe and tell your friends to do the same. Let's get started. Here's an overview of what students will be accomplishing in this lesson. Students will be introduced to 2 additional Tier 2 vocabulary words that relate to the theme of community. Those 2 words are committed and retaliate. Students will also be using the information they gathered during last lesson's interviews to practice introducing their peers in a team. Additionally, students will be assessing each other's communication skills using a checklist. I typically give students the choice between 2 questions in the warm-up. For this particular lesson, I've decided to switch it up a bit. And what I've done is, instead of having students choose, I've designated the questions that they will answer based on their birthday months. For instance, if a student's birthday falls in March, they would answer the first question: what is the purpose of an interview for the interviewer? However, if their birthday is in September, they would answer the question, what is the purpose of an interview for the audience? This is a variation of something I might do in my classroom with table numbers or sides of the room. I think using birthdays is a good way to engage students because who doesn't want to talk about their birthday? And who doesn't get excited when they know that someone in the class has a birthday that is the same as theirs or in the same month as theirs? It's just another way to build community with your students. Introducing someone takes practice, and we want to give our students that practice. Students should know that a successful introduction honors the person they're introducing, shows respect for the audience, and also highlights their communication skills. This presenter's checklist is based upon protocols and norms you've already established in your virtual classroom. This checklist will be used for the model, the work period, and the share. To make the model more interactive, you may want to create a survey using Google Forms. For the model guided portion of this lesson, I have a few options. One thing that I can do is use the results or the interview notes from the last lesson and actually model introducing myself to the class. Of course, when I do this, I don't want it to be perfect. I want to give students an opportunity to feel like they can be completely honest with their opinion or their assessment of my presentation. So I usually do some things really well and other things I deliberately flub. A second thing you can do is you can actually show students a video of someone being introduced. You have to make the determination based on the information you've been gathering from your students. One of the benefits of actually using my notes from the last lesson is that once students assess how I've done, I can then redo the introduction, taking into account the feedback that they've given me. If you decide not to use a Google form to collect the student's assessment of your presentation, you can use the chat where students can put a Y or an N, a thumbs up or a thumbs down as you go through the different indicators on the checklist. You can also have students share verbally using the solo technique. Remember, you've been developing and building in all of these different protocols with your students. It's important that you revisit these protocols so that they become part of your students' everyday behavior in your classroom, in your virtual classroom. Now it's time to use the work period to have students practice what you've introduced in the model. The last time they worked collaboratively, they worked with a partner. This time they're working with a team. You may want to take the time to reestablish some of the protocols you've collaboratively developed around teamwork. As students work in their pods, you want to visit their pods to ensure that students are working productively and also to offer any support they may need. Also use this time to assess whether some students may feel confident enough to introduce their peer to the class. If you'd like more information about how to create these pods where students are working in these separate rooms, please leave a comment in the comment section requesting it. In the share, we're going to have at least one or two pairs of students introduce their peer to the class and receive feedback from their classmates. You don't want to spend the entire class session having peers introduce each other to the class. It can become redundant and boring. So what I usually do is I space these introductions out over the span of a few days while we continue learning other things. In the closing, I usually have students reflect on that driving question or think about what they will be sure to do when they introduce a peer. The slides from day one are available in the description box of our first video. If you'd like to get the slides for days 2, 3, and 4, please tell your friends about our channel and subscribe. Thank you for stopping by on Secondary Thought, the home of purposefully imperfect teaching. See you next time.